In 2015, about 7 years ago, property managers in JLT were approached by Project Washington, which was a code name, and they were asked for permission for aerial photography. Maybe some of you remember. That was a massive operation, involved a helicopter, camera crew, ground crew, involved a massive budget as well. We later found out that it was Star Trek Beyond, which was released in 2016. So the city which is featured in that movie is actually JLT, and you can actually recognize some of the buildings there. So a budget for that kind of operation, the aerial photography, just 7 years ago was a very elite thing which could be only afforded by the likes of Star Trek with massive budgets. But you'd be surprised to know that just 7 years down the line, drones, and I learned a new word just a few days ago, photogrammetry, is the most popular prop tech implemented in US and Canada. Most popular, widely used. The drones guys will be very happy to hear that. So I was also surprised that drones and photogrammetry is the most popular prop tech implemented in US and Canada. This is based on a survey which is called PropTech Insights by IREM, Institute of Real Estate Management, 2022. So I am not using a PowerPoint to bore you guys. I'll just give you a few highlights and then call upon the panel to give some local insights. The other very important revelation in that survey was the hurdle to PropTech. So we have been listening to all the PropTech guys, the service providers, the technology developers, but this is coming from property managers. This survey was actually sent to property managers, and the biggest hurdle was cost. And you can link this to drones and photogrammetry. As the cost came down, the PropTech was widely adapted. And secondly, this was again revealed in that PropTech Insights. Property managers, companies, owners, everyone involved with real estate, they are pragmatists. They are practical people. They are not technology savvy. They look at practical stuff. So, and when this COVID pushed virtual viewings and 3D modeling, that picked up. So the aerial photography, use of drones also, it naturally played low cost, practical use, and the technology become widely accepted. Another very interesting fact, in the morning we had this question about consumers or end users not being aware of prop tech or not being friendly towards prop tech. The problem is with property managers. According to the survey, 3.1 out of 5, this is the, on a scale of 5, most property managers, they were 3.1 or lower on the scorecard with respect to each prop tech. So there is a lot of learning that property managers have to do with regards to prop tech. So this was a little bit of insight on the prop tech survey. I will share the link at the end of our panel discussion. I'll post it on my LinkedIn. You can look at that report. It will be very helpful, especially to the technology providers, to understand what property managers think and what is going on in their mind and how that gap can be bridged between the technology providers and the property managers. So without delay, I would invite my panelist, Amit. Based on your industry trends and your sector, what tools have you implemented?
Okay, first let's realize that we're talking about the real estate sector here. So I would first try to give a perspective of what's happening in the market, especially here, for people who are not from here. We've had the most fabulous year last year, and we're all riding on a very high wave. With the maximum number of sales transactions happening in the history ever. last year, 72% growth, which is unparalleled, which is all giving a lot of hope to the IT and digitally savvy companies, because there's so much to be done in these property, giants and these big companies, because people don't even know the difference between a property manager and a facility manager. Many people. So you'll be surprised, because I'm talking from a layman's perspective, but I'm telling you the truth that people today in this part of the world, they weren't differentiating for a long time. They were hiring facilities managers first, they were hiring leasing managers, and property managers came in the end, who actually were looking at the whole asset. So I think that's all, it's all evolved for all of us. And developers have grown, and they've grown too quickly, too fast, because the markets just boomed. And I think we've had a lot of evolution of sorts. Coming to the tools, I think we've been relatively new in this, because we just started doing it about a year ago, where we developed our own app. I think that was most important for us to do, because we wanted to engage with the customers directly. We wanted to give them, ease of being in touch with us, because that's where it all boils down to. Now, the app had to be done in 3 different phases, because there were already customers who were existing, and then there were new launches and new customers who would come in. So, we had to start somewhere, which is what we did. We did the app, and we kind of integrated it with whatever we had in the system, and we are still evolving. So the experience has been very good till now, because we have over 30,000 people who have gone onto the app now in the last 1 year, and we are hoping that there'll be much more. The growth is very high. But I think that's the best way to do it, develop your own tools, because you learn through your own experiences of people being happy or unhappy, or trying to be more constructive in their approach.
So tenant experience and communication was your focused tool, Amit. Right, let's come to Jamil.
We definitely did our own application. We have a group of companies, of which one of them focuses on property management, and then as well as community and owner association management. Yet on the property management, we also developed our own application. But what I wanted to reach on the previous panel was, the key for us was integration. And if we would have had this discussion a year ago, I don't think I would have had this part as part of this conversation, as today every single one of us here has probably 100 applications or more that provide different level of services. So the application that we have created is all about how you can integrate with other platforms and other softwares out there to provide the resident with the services that they need. Now, the basics are the basics: the maintenance, the security, the events management, and all that stuff. But what we found, that the evolution of technology and the way the speed it's going at, that there's no way that you can provide a full solution. You got to do something that ends up, because what's going to come up tomorrow is going to be something that a lot of your tenants or residents will say and find very useful and needed. So the key for us was, how can you build a platform where, as you grow, you don't have to provide anything other than that one platform that you have? So integration for us was the biggest part.
Jamil, you are not alone. The PropTech survey, the PropTech Insights by IRM, which is basically based in USA and Canada, lists integration and training as the second biggest hurdle after cost. So that is also what property managers across the world share. Colin, how is your take on the tools?
It's interesting listening to Amit and also to Jamil. And Jamil is actually an ex-client of mine, so I have to be very careful about what I say. Now, JLL, we're a service provider, so we look at it from a different perspective than the two gentlemen to my left. And one of the big pieces of work that we do, or we get brought in, and the panel touched on it before, is coming in and looking at design and looking at the question, answering your question earlier, and where we can bring in our expertise as the property manager and as an inheritor of what goes before into operations and to manage out performance, and to future-proof what is the decisions that are made in design and construction. So we've invested heavily as a company into scanning, and so that we're looking at the front end piece to ensure that we're future-proofing the back end operations. So we've scanned buildings, and then we take that knowledge and that data into how we plan the management regimes, how we plan the management regimes that are cost effective and viable going forward. And then, as a company, you have to use us. Our quality is if we bring something new to you. So as a company, we've set up venture capital fund, and we invest into prop tech companies, brand new prop tech companies. They do all their piece, and we bring that to our clients. So we invest heavily into that. We're not the ones that are developing it. We're the ones that are enabling it. We help them get the market entry.
Thank you, Colin. Going back to Amit. So what do you see, or what is your outlook with respect to investment in the future? On which tools do you think you will invest or you should invest?
Well, actually, again, to tell you simply, we're trying to get the interface between the computer-aided facilities management and all the other platforms that we have, WhatsApp, and what are being used by people more and more. But how do we integrate it through our app? And the tools that we use will be something that the customer tells us, which we try and take regular updates and I was with my CIO earlier just discussing this, how are we actually measuring it and which are the tools which are working? And he couldn't answer. He said, we've come a long way in the last 1 year, and we are still actually going back to our own consumer and asking him or her, what is it that's making his or her life easy? So there was no right or wrong. We have the ERP system, we have Oracle somewhere, but for every department to an extent, we have EPM, which is like Ice Age, but we still have it. But I'm saying that we are using all of them, trying to, like what Jamil was saying, integrate it in a way which is beneficial for the customer at the end of the day. So it has to come back from there. And therefore, people need to stop, pause, and then go back and do these surveys, hear the voice of the customer. So I think that's where, for me, the solution lies for any tool. So no success model as such.
Jamil, what is your outlook on where the investment should be, or where you plan to invest, on which tools?
I come from an investment background, and if I knew the answer to this question, I won't be sitting here. But if I would put it in a different way, I'd say that, again, if I would have one foundation to this question, I'll tell you, we make sure that we never invest in conflicting business. What do I mean by that? The first panel spoke about, and I didn't want to ask because I thought it's going to come back to me and they're going to shoot me down when I'm on the stage, which was, how can you invest in design or construction or supporting businesses? I disagree with that, and that's my personal opinion. It's nothing against those businesses. It's just that I feel having a very clear, transparent message to the landlord, to the owners associations, telling them that I have no conflict in my business by investing in other services that I'm going to end up putting the KPI on. So that from a general perspective of 40,000 feet or higher. And then on a lower perspective, we try to invest in perhaps products that support our own core service. We saw, and we hear today a lot of words like sustainability, customer service, seamless experience, and any product that can help us provide the resident and our client and our stakeholders with that, we would put money in.
I'll put another different slant on it. We're a people industry. You're all in this industry. We're quite a small industry. I think the investment should be into our people. Globally, there's a problem with talent pool. Everyone's vying for the same people. And as a firm, we've really targeted that talent retention is where we should be investing. And there's all different tools to how you do that and how you retain your talent. Construction developers, investors, performance is really measured by tenant attraction or investor attraction, investor retention, and tenant retention. So again, the tools for the gentleman to the left should be focused on that. How do we retain our tenants? How do we attract tenants? And the apps are very useful. But again, how many apps do we have on our telephone? And it's all about the functionality. So really understanding that customer experience, understanding what the customer wants as a tenant or an investor into your properties is key, and then developing around that. I've worked with JLL in a long time, and I've seen us develop software packages. I've seen us develop apps with a waste of money. And we've wasted millions and millions of dollars on that. And then we take it to customers, and the customers say, well, that's not what our customers want. So really, I would say, if I was advising, invest the time into understanding who your customer base is, and then develop the products beyond that.
So Amit and Jamil, how do you measure that the tools that you have chosen, the investment that you've done on PropTech, it's actually working? How do you measure that?
So like Colin was mentioning about measurement in terms of KPIs and measurement in terms of retention, that's one part of it. Okay, it's not the full measurement, but we do need to measure how effective this particular tool is, because only then we continue to invest more in it. So our team is very open and very vibrant at this moment. They are open to everything, and therefore we say we can use Salesforce, or we may not want to use the Salesforce, but we need to get to the solution that the customers is looking at. So from our end, the measurement happens through every KPI that's set specifically for every service provider or for the department within the firm. So IT has its own, for me, leasing has its own. But the idea is that you measure, you change or adapt, and then you action. So I think the only point is I'm trying to make here is measurement's one key area, but it's one part of it. After measurement, what you do and why do you need to measure is very critical. It was a little bit difficult for me when I came in and I said, we're building a mall in Damac Hills 1. It's called Ventura Mall. And I said, I need to do a survey and understand there are 10,000 residents there. I need to measure what do they really want in the mall, because the success of a mall is the tenant mix, which is the mix I have. And not just the services or, a gym or a clinic or a supermarket or, some salons, but it's about even an F&B. If I have 20% of my mall as F&B, I need to know what is the cuisine that people like. So for that, the measurement comes back to customer, to people who are living there as people who I've sold to or who are tenants there. And therefore, we take data back from them and then we implement it. I'm trying to do it in a small way in my own department, but it's a huge task. It's like, 2,500 people, every department's different, but you got to do your own bit, and small changes then bring about the big one.
Jamil.
As simple as it might sound, but in rental properties, sometimes no news is good news. Yet, taking a proactive approach on sitting with your clients and understanding their needs on a regular basis, through monthly meetings, surveys, just getting that feedback that you'd actually have to drive versus just sitting there and doing nothing. Because people are not very receptive to giving back feedback. So you got to get out of your way as far as rental properties and property management is concerned. One. Two, I completely agree with you, Amit. I mean, the KPIs on the property management team, your team, your staff, and how that is measured is also another sign as to how you can understand the outcome of that.
This very closely matches with the PropTech Insights. There as well, the return on implementation is measured in terms of tenant satisfaction and increased safety and stuff, and not really in monetary terms. I think this is an important insight which is, I think, now shared across countries and regions. Colin, do you want to talk about digital transformation before we take the questions?
Digital transformation as a company and how we've embraced that, I touched on it earlier with JLL Spark. So again, we're not, our CEO maybe 7 years ago, 8 years ago, famously said that we're a property company that will change to an IT company advising in property. And that had a direct effect on our share value at that time. But he's been proven right in that prediction because our share value is doing well. But that's the way we have to evolve our service to our clients, is through innovation. And with JLL Spark, this fund, global fund that we set up, we recognize that there are subject matter experts, people a lot more clever than us that can develop these products for our clients that we can then enable and take to our clients. So that, alongside with our staff, just the normal tools that we've invested into to enable them to do the roles, that's important. And then we've developed apps which allow us to book desks, meeting rooms, all sorts of things across the world, across our network of offices, and also client offices as well. So recognizing that workplace, changing workplace practices as well.
So before you ask the question, can I just add to what he said in terms of transformation? We'll be very happy to answer questions and one by one again. But I think it's very important we understand what transformation is, number one, and how simply can we do it in our own realms, number one. Because I see, SPAs being executed, and I come and ask, I said, we're talking about paperless, and where are all these multiple agreements going? Where do they get stored? And I question myself, then I go question back, the management, and I say, it doesn't seem like it's any good use of our time to keep these stacked up somewhere when we can do it all digitally. So it's a simple way to start somewhere, but I think it goes a long way because you start thinking that way then. Why do I need to travel so much? Why can't I reduce the carbon footprint? I can transform by doing everything online today. We've all got it after the COVID, and we all are so comfortable being online. It's changed the entire paradigm. Today, everyone's very comfortable, including our kids. They want to do classes online more than go to school. They want to have a mix, which is what we'll always have, the hybrid. But transformation happens at the basic small level is what.
Good morning. Fascinating conversation. Thank you. I'd be curious, two questions. One is, what are IT budgets and how have they changed? So, because certainly in order to invest, you need to increase budgets, and what percentage of the budget would be IT related overall these days, and how has it changed?
It's a great question. Thank you very much. And it's actually, I'm not going to lie to you, it's the one budget line item that we never meet. And it's the one budget line item that really upsets me on a monthly basis, sitting with the technology director. Just because, in a way, I've got shareholders, I've got investors that I've got to answer to, and why have we exceeded or went above such a thing. But again, I go back to the same issue of integration, which is a gray area for me. Honestly, I'm an investment guy. I mean, WhatsApp, I don't even have social media, you guys. I mean, I just started on this a few months back. But technology for me was a gray area. And what we ended up doing last year, and we're going to do more of next year, is just really jack up that technology budget as much as I can, simply because we've got releases, just how Damac is doing it. We didn't go with the full-fledged service line item on our application. So we did 3 releases. I literally sent an email to my colleagues yesterday in the plane saying that these the items in release 3, which is by the end of this year, doesn't look good. We got to look at this again. We keep on doing pre-screening on companies and developers to do that. But honestly, I don't have the right answer that you're probably looking for. As much as I tell you, I've learned my mistake. I got the hammer down in the last board meeting where I kind of realized that going forward, I'd rather justify why I need so much money without having exactly how it's going to be spent, or we just simply break that down into portions within the year and see how we go about it. But it has been the past 2 years for me a very, very interesting conversation, whether it's internally or on a board level. I'm sorry, I probably didn't give you the answer you want to hear.
No, I think it helps
it's
in
the
terms
truth.
of maybe the takeaway is that organizations need to invest more in technology and have it as a bigger line item and then also be able to measure it over time.
100%.
Second, just quick question, if I may, is from a resident services point of view, what were the top 3 things that you would expect that residents want that benefit your business versus what then residents actually told you in terms of what they actually use, right? There's always this combination in terms of the resident may want something, but it doesn't add value to your operation, either lower cost, increased services, et cetera. And where's the in-between?
Wasim Ahmed is our operations director, and we arrived yesterday and had dinner last night. And I told him a little bit, he's kind of new, not very new, but what we did in the past years, I come from a family business that's been in the property management industry for the past 4 decades, and I jumped into this about 20 years ago. And having come from the US and believed in customer service and all that stuff, we developed a program where we sit and, like I mentioned earlier, have monthly meetings. And then the evolution of that meeting ended up being, all right, let's designate and see who would volunteer from the residents or assign someone from within the community to become the liaison on behalf of, it's like an owner association, right? But you do that on a different level. And then what we ended up doing is giving them the authority on how to spend on a quarterly basis, right? How can they spend some of the money that is concerning some of the facilities and services that they want. There are things that we do, maintenance, visitor management, asset management, and I can go on that. I'm sure you guys know all of that. But then when we threw the ball back on their side of the court, it really made a lot of difference. And the moral of that story for us was, if you get them involved, then you have less headache to worry about, because if they kind of complain, we're like, go to Amit, he's the one who did it. I didn't do it. So they ended up interacting much more than so before. So I firmly believe that even if it's a rental property, not an owner association setup, get your tenants involved. Let them feel that ownership feeling of that property. And that's really what we do in Solana. It's all about getting your tenants to sit with you on the table, take decisions, and you support. And they ended up actually, when we did that, 2nd or 3rd year into that, they ended up making us money, because they ended up having events that generated some revenue, and then that money rolled over to the next year, and it became a very, very interesting model.
Adding a little bit to it, because I think it's important that you ask for 3 aspects that the customer is looking for today, and I think primarily the customer is looking for convenience, and cost cutting. From them, where they're staying, they want a very nice place to live, whether they're a tenant or an owner, and they don't want to spend too much. That's what every customer is looking for, in my opinion, okay? And I think if we can get the right formula for that, like what somehow Jamil mentioned, that when you go back to them, they gave us the answers rather than us telling them. They actually gave us the answers. We got to implement them in a monetized way. You can't be doing only things which are one way. But we got to listen, do these surveys again and again with them, so that they feel heard. And you can make their life as convenient as you can. And in terms of the budget, sorry, one last thing. I think it depends on where you're wanting to invest. Because if, like my company wants to invest in the metaverse in a big way, they're starting with 100 million, which is very small, but that's what the company's wanting to go in. So there, it's again, 3.0 version of where we're not even 2.0 qualified right now. So I want to know, what this budget would be. This could just be a number, but depending on how much risk you want to take with the future today that people are talking about, that's the number that will come from there. Because you'll have to change and evolve completely from what you're doing today. Get avatars for everyone and get, things like what Airways are doing, get things like Ajman Police is doing, or get things which are way ahead of what we're doing today. And people are talking about it. I think we all need to know about it. But that's what I would think. So no numbers for the budget.